Family. This video I'm going to put here is a show about Bumpy Johnson, a man in Harlem back in 1931. When you disrespect his mother, you don't kill the person. You don't kill them. You just kill them. But you don't disrespect mothers. This video about Bumpy Johnson. This is what we have to do to people, that these so-called policemen that try to humiliate black people, all think because they got a badge, that they're above the law. This is what you have to do. You wait a year, 6 months later, and do to them what you do to your family. Like I said, I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying do unto others if you have them do unto you. It's about 20 minutes long, but check it out. Check it out.
The slap echoed across Lenox. The slap echoed across Lenox Avenue like a gunshot. September 14th, 1931, 2:47 p.m. Officer Patrick O'Reilly's hand connected with the face of Margaret Johnson, a 58-year-old woman who'd been walking home from Abyssinian Baptist Church. The sound cut through the afternoon air, sharp, violent, deliberate. The street stopped. Vendors stopped selling. Musicians stopped playing. Children stopped running. Conversations died mid-sentence. 200 people watched a white cop humiliate a black mother in the middle of Harlem. A woman in a Sunday dress, a woman carrying a Bible, a woman who'd done nothing except exist on a sidewalk that Officer O'Reilly considered his personal kingdom. And 200 people watched her son, Bumpy Johnson, do nothing. He didn't swing, didn't shout, didn't even move. He just stood there, 6 feet away from his mother, watching her stumble backward from the force of the blow, watching her hand go to her face, watching tears well up in her eyes, not from pain, from humiliation, from the knowledge that her son couldn't protect her because the man who'd struck her wore a badge. Bumpy's face showed nothing, but his eyes. Witnesses would later say they'd never seen eyes like that. Cold, empty, like staring into a well with no bottom. O'Reilly laughed, a big booming laugh that echoed off the brownstones. He twirled his nightstick, adjusted his cap, and looked directly at Bumpy. "What are you going to do about it, boy? Call the police?" He laughed again. "Oh, wait, I am the police." Then he walked away, slow, casual, like a man who owned the world. Officer Patrick O'Reilly had 72 hours left to live. He just didn't know it yet. To understand what happened next, you need to understand who Patrick O'Reilly was in 1931 Harlem. O'Reilly wasn't just any cop. He was the 28th Precinct's muscle, the enforcer, the man they sent when they wanted someone hurt, not arrested. He'd been on the force for 11 years, and in that time he'd built a reputation that made grown men cross the street when they saw him coming. O'Reilly collected taxes from black-owned businesses, protection money. You paid, or your shop mysteriously burned down. He shook down numbers runners, keeping half their earnings and arresting them anyway if they complained. He'd beaten at least a dozen men so badly they'd ended up at Harlem Hospital, and not one of those beatings resulted in any disciplinary action. Why? Because O'Reilly had friends. The captain of the 28th Precinct was his wife's cousin. The local alderman played poker with him every Thursday, and the Irish mob, the real power in New York's police department in 1931, protected him because O'Reilly was useful. He kept Harlem scared. He kept black criminals in check. He was the boot on the neck. And O'Reilly knew it. He walked through Harlem like a king, his nightstick swinging, his badge gleaming, knowing that no one could touch him. Not the community, not the law. No one. That Tuesday afternoon, O'Reilly had been in a particularly foul mood. He lost money betting on a boxing match the night before. His captain had chewed him out for showing up drunk to roll call, And now here was this elderly black woman walking too slow on the sidewalk, blocking his path as he made his afternoon rounds. Move, O'Reilly had barked. Margaret Johnson was 58 years old. She'd been born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1873, 8 years after the Civil War ended. She'd seen things that would break most people. She'd survived Jim Crow. She'd survived poverty. She'd raised her son, Bumpy, through impossible odds. And she'd learned, like all black people in America had learned, to keep her head down around white authority. So when Officer O'Reilly told her to move, she said, "Yes, sir," and tried to step aside. But she wasn't fast enough for O'Reilly's anger. That's when his hand came up. That's when the slap echoed across Lenox Avenue. That's when everything changed. Bumpy Johnson was 24 years old in September 1931. He'd already done 2 prison terms, one for robbery, one for assault. He'd already built a reputation as someone you didn't cross. He ran policy banks. He protected local businesses from white gangsters trying to muscle in. He was becoming someone important in Harlem's underworld. But standing there on Lenox Avenue, watching a cop slap his mother, Bumpy Johnson wasn't a gangster. He was just a son, helpless, frozen, trapped by the same impossible math that trapped every black person in America. Fight back against a white cop and die. O'Reilly had a gun. O'Reilly had a badge. O'Reilly had the entire New York Police Department behind him. If Bumpy swung, even once, O'Reilly would shoot him dead in the street and call it justified. Self-defense, resisting arrest.
That's what they do now.
Wouldn't even question it. So Bumpy stood there, his hands clenched into fists, so tight his knuckles went white, his jaw locked, his breathing shallow. Stood there while his mother touched her face. Stood there while O'Reilly laughed. Stood there while 200 people watched him fail to protect the woman who'd protected him his entire life. The silence was absolute. Then O'Reilly spoke. "That's what I thought. You coloreds are all the same. Tough when you're stealing from each other, but put a real man in front of you." He tapped his badge. "And you remember your place." He spit on the sidewalk, near Margaret's feet. "Tell your boy to stay out of trouble, Mammy. Next time it won't be just a slap." Then he walked away, whistling. Bumpy Johnson didn't move for a full minute after O'Reilly left. The crowd stayed silent. Nobody knew what to say. They didn't comfort a man after something like that. The humiliation was too profound. Finally, Bumpy walked over to his mother, took her arm gently. "Let's go home, Mama." Margaret Johnson looked up at her son, saw the expression on his face, and she knew. She knew what was coming. She'd seen that look before, when Bumpy was 14 and a white shopkeeper had cheated him, when Bumpy was 19 and a prison guard had beaten him for no reason, when Bumpy was 22 and a rival gangster had disrespected him. That look meant someone was going to pay. "Ellsworth," she said softly, using his real name. "Don't do anything foolish. That man has the law on his side." Bumpy didn't respond, just walked her home in silence. But everyone on Lenox Avenue that day would later say the same thing. Bumpy's silence was more terrifying than any threat he could have made. What happened over the next 72 hours is the stuff of legend in Harlem. Bumpy didn't act immediately, didn't let rage make him stupid. Instead, he did what he always did. He thought, he planned, he organized. Hours 1 to 12. Bumpy made phone calls, not to criminals, to working people, porters, waiters, shoeshine boys, people who were invisible to men like O'Reilly, people who saw everything because nobody looked at them. Within 6 hours, Bumpy knew O'Reilly's complete routine, where he lived, apartment on the Upper West Side, where he drank, McSorley's Ale House, what time he started his shift, 6 a.m., what time he finished, 2 p.m., where he went afterward, different every day, but always alone for at least 20 minutes. Hour 12 to 24. Bumpy studied O'Reilly's connections, mapped out who protected him, the cousin captain, the alderman, the Irish mob connections. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about sending a message that would echo through every precinct in New York. O'Reilly bragged at the precinct that day, told his fellow officers how he'd put some colored woman in her place, laughed about the son who'd stood there like a coward, even demonstrated the slap, his hand cutting through the air while his buddies chuckled. What O'Reilly didn't notice, a black janitor mopping the floor, listening, remembering, reporting back to Bumpy. Hour 24 to 48, O'Reilly started noticing things. A man reading a newspaper at the bar who wasn't drinking. A car that seemed to be behind him for 3 blocks before turning off. A face he'd seen twice in one day in different parts of town. O'Reilly wasn't stupid. He'd made enemies. He told a few officers to keep an eye out, but they laughed it off. You're paranoid, Pat. Nobody's dumb enough to come after a cop. Hour 48 to 72. O'Reilly's captain called him into the office. Patrick, I'm hearing things. Hearing that you had an incident with some colored woman uptown, and that her son is Bumpy Johnson. O'Reilly shrugged. So what? I slapped her. She was blocking the sidewalk. What's Johnson gonna do? Cry about it? The captain looked worried. Patrick, listen to me. Take a few days off. Go to your brother's place in Boston. Let this cool down. O'Reilly laughed. I'm not running from some colored gangster. Let him try something. I'll put a bullet in him and sleep like a baby. That was Wednesday evening, September 16th, 1931. Thursday morning, September 17th, 1931. Officer Patrick O'Reilly left his apartment at 5:47 a.m. He was walking to the subway station to head to the precinct for his 6 a.m. shift. The streets were empty. Pre-dawn darkness, a few street lamps casting yellow pools of light. O'Reilly never made it to the subway. What happened in those 4 blocks? Nobody knows. Not exactly. No witnesses, no struggle, no gunshots, no screams. One moment, Officer Patrick O'Reilly was walking down West 85th Street. The next moment, he was gone. His wife reported him missing at noon when he didn't come home. The NYPD launched a massive search. They checked hospitals, they checked morgues, they checked every criminal hideout in Manhattan. Nothing. For 72 hours, Officer Patrick O'Reilly simply vanished. Friday morning, September 20th, 1931, 6:47 a.m. Exactly 72 hours after O'Reilly disappeared, Officer Thomas Murphy arrived for the morning shift at the 28th Precinct. He was walking up the front steps when he saw something that made him freeze. A man, tied to the iron railing, naked except for his underwear, shivering, not from cold, from terror. Murphy got closer and his stomach dropped. It was Patrick O'Reilly. But it wasn't the O'Reilly he knew. This man's eyes were empty, glassy, staring at nothing. His lips were moving, but no sound was coming out. His body was covered in bruises, not the kind that kill you, but the kind that make you wish you were dead. And pinned to his chest, right over his heart, was a note, handwritten, neat letters. Respect mothers. Murphy tried to untie him. Pat, what happened? Who did this? O'Reilly's head turned slowly. His mouth opened. I'm sorry. That's all he said. Just those 2 words over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They cut O'Reilly loose, wrapped him in a blanket, tried to get him to talk. Patrick, who did this? Where were you? What happened? O'Reilly just stared straight ahead, his lips trembling. I'm sorry. They took him to Bellevue Hospital. The doctors examined him. Physically, he was relatively unharmed. Bruises, dehydration, signs of being restrained for an extended period, but no broken bones, no permanent injuries, nothing that would explain the look in his eyes. Psychologically, Officer Patrick O'Reilly was destroyed. The police psychiatrist interviewed him for 2 hours, asked him questions, tried to piece together what happened during those 72 hours. O'Reilly answered every question the
I'm
same
sorry.
way.
I'm sorry.
What's your name?
I'm sorry.
Where were you?
I'm sorry.
Who did this to you?
I'm sorry.
It didn't matter what they asked. It didn't matter how they asked it. His mind was broken, shattered. Whatever happened in those 72 hours had erased everything except those two words. The psychiatrist's report stated, patient exhibits severe psychological trauma consistent with prolonged exposure to extreme stress. Patient is non-responsive to all questioning. Recommend immediate psychiatric commitment and removal from active duty. Translation: Officer O'Reilly had lost his mind. The NYPD went insane. They raided every Harlem establishment. They brought in every known criminal for questioning. They offered immunity, offered money, offered anything for information about what happened to O'Reilly. Nothing. Nobody talked. Nobody knew anything. And the few people who might have known, they looked the investigators dead in the eye and said, I don't know what you're talking about. The forensic team examined O'Reilly's body for evidence, found nothing useful. The bruises suggested restraints, rope, maybe chains, but the specific type couldn't be determined. No fingerprints, no fibers, no DNA evidence. This was 1931. They didn't have sophisticated forensics anyway. They analyzed the note. Standard paper, standard pencil. Handwriting didn't match anyone in their database. No way to trace it. They interviewed the 200 witnesses from Lenox Avenue, the people who'd seen O'Reilly slap Margaret Johnson. Every single one said the same thing. I don't remember seeing anything unusual. The NYPD knew who was responsible. Everyone knew. Bumpy Johnson. But they couldn't prove it. Bumpy had an alibi for all 72 hours. He'd been visiting his sick aunt in New Jersey with a dozen witnesses to confirm. His known associates, all accounted for, all with alibis, all clean. The investigation dragged on for 6 months, then a year, then it was quietly closed. Officially, unsolved assault and kidnapping. Unofficially, don't ever talk about this again. Officer Patrick O'Reilly never returned to duty. He was medically retired from the NYPD in December 1931, given a pension, given psychiatric care, but nothing helped. He spent the rest of his life in and out of mental institutions. His wife left him. His friends abandoned him. He became a ghost, technically alive, but not really living. And for the next 37 years, until his death in 1968, Patrick O'Reilly only said 2 words.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. To nurses, to doctors, to visitors, to the walls, to himself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The other cops at the 28th Precinct got the message loud and clear. What Bumpy Johnson did to O'Reilly was worse than killing him. Death would have been mercy. Instead, Bumpy had done something so horrific, so psychologically devastating, that O'Reilly's mind couldn't survive it. And the beautiful part? There was no evidence, no body, no crime scene, just a broken man tied to a railing with a note that said, "Respect mothers." The precinct changed after that. Cops still collected their taxes, still shook down businesses, but they stopped slapping people. They stopped the casual brutality, because O'Reilly's empty desk was a daily reminder. You can survive a bullet. You can't survive what Bumpy Johnson does to your mind. In Harlem, they don't tell this story to scare children. They tell it to teach respect. They tell it to remind people that some lines can't be crossed, that mothers are sacred, that badges don't make you invincible. And they tell it to remember Bumpy Johnson, the man who proved that real power isn't about violence, it's about precision. It's about sending a message so clear, so devastating, that it echoes for generations. Officer O'Reilly thought he could slap a black woman in broad daylight and walk away laughing. He was wrong. 72 hours later, he was found naked and insane, apologizing to ghosts for the rest of his life. And Bumpy Johnson, he went back to protecting Harlem, back to running his operations, back to being the king, because that's what kings do. They protect their people, they punish disrespect, and they make sure the lesson is never forgotten. Respect mothers, or learn to say, "I'm sorry," for the rest of your life. If this story hit different, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button. We're telling the Bumpy Johnson stories the history books won't touch. The brilliance, the strategy, the code. Drop a comment. What do you think happened in those 72 hours? And would you rather die or end up like O'Reilly? Hit the bell, because next week we're bringing you the story of how Bumpy Johnson walked into Lucky Luciano's office unarmed and walked out as an equal. You don't want to miss that. Harlem didn't need superheroes. They had Bumpy Johnson. And Bumpy Johnson's revenge wasn't murder. It was mercy. The kind of mercy that's worse than death.
Like I said, I don't advocate violence, but we need more Bumpy Johnsons in these times. We need more Bumpy Johnsons in these times, folks. Much love. Peace out. Lots of love. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, like the videos. I'm out of here. Subscribe, like, share the videos. I'm out of here. Peace out. Lots of love.